The shrill cry of a baby sliced through the steady hum of the airplane cabin, shattering the calm like glass meeting stone. Passengers exchanged glances, some irritated, some sympathetic, others pretending not to notice. But there was no escaping it, the raw, desperate wails of an infant who didn't understand altitude, pressure, or exhaustion. In the first-class cabin, near the window, sat a sharply dressed man in his early 30s. His tie was loosened, his collar slightly open, sweat gathering along his temple. His wristwatch gleamed beneath the soft cabin lights, a silent reminder of his wealth. Yet at that moment, the burden in his arms felt heavier than all the luxury surrounding him. His name was Ethan Carter, a tech millionaire accustomed to solving billion-dollar problems in glass boardrooms. Not the cries of a tiny human in a cramped airplane seat. And the baby in his arms, Oliver, his 6-month-old son, had been crying almost nonstop since takeoff. Flight attendants had tried everything: warm milk, soft lullabies, colorful toys, pacifiers. Nothing worked. Ethan's face told the story of a man unraveling, part exhaustion, part guilt, and part helplessness. This was his first trip alone with Oliver since the night his world shattered. Since losing his wife, Grace, in a tragic car accident 6 months earlier. Grace had been the calm to his storm, the warmth to his ambition, the heartbeat of their little family. Without her, the house felt like a museum of what once was. Every sound from Oliver, every cry, every coo, felt like both a blessing and a wound. Now, as the plane roared somewhere above the clouds, Ethan felt utterly alone. Passengers were whispering. A woman across the aisle shook her head and muttered something about rich people who can't even handle their own children. Ethan heard it. It stung. He wasn't angry, just ashamed, because maybe she was right. He looked down at his son, his face flushed red from crying, little fists clenching the air as if begging for comfort that wasn't there. Ethan whispered hoarsely, "I'm trying, buddy. Daddy's trying," but even to his own ears, it sounded like a confession more than reassurance. A few rows back, a woman had been watching in silence. Her name was Clara Evans, a young single mother, traveling home after visiting her sister. She wore a faded denim jacket, its sleeves frayed at the edges, and carried a simple diaper bag that had seen better days. In her arms, her baby girl, Lily, slept peacefully, her tiny chest rising and falling with the rhythm of dreams. Clara's eyes softened as she watched the man struggle. She recognized that kind of panic, the silent fear that you're failing your child, that you're not enough. It was the same fear that had kept her awake countless nights, holding Lily close, wondering how she'd get through another day alone. For several minutes, she hesitated. It wasn't her place. She was just another passenger, another mother doing her best. Who was she to interfere, especially with a man sitting in first class, his suit worth more than her entire month's rent? But as Oliver's cries grew louder and Ethan's face paled with anxiety, something stirred in her heart, that instinct only a mother knows. The urge to help, even when it isn't convenient. Clara gently adjusted her sleeping daughter, took a quiet breath, and stood. The flight attendants glanced up as she walked down the aisle, unsure what she was doing. But her expression was calm, the calm of someone who had weathered storms far worse than judgmental stares. She reached Ethan's row and leaned in slightly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Excuse me," she said gently. Ethan looked up, startled, his embarrassment almost visible. Clara smiled faintly. "I think I can help." He blinked. "Help?" Clara nodded once, her tone kind, steady. What she said next made the people in nearby seats freeze in disbelief. She said softly, "My daughter's about the same age. I have breast milk. I can feed him, if you're okay with it." For a moment, the cabin fell utterly silent. Even the hum of the engine seemed to fade. Ethan froze. It was such a deeply personal, almost unthinkable offer, something that broke every social rule, yet radiated something more powerful than logic: humanity. He looked at Oliver, his cries now weak, his little chest heaving. Then he looked at Clara, a stranger, but somehow, in that instant, she felt like an anchor in a storm. Ethan's throat tightened. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Please, please help him." Clara nodded and sat beside him. With quiet care, she cradled Oliver in her arms, adjusting him with the practiced grace of a mother. Within seconds, just seconds, the crying stopped. The change was like magic. The baby's wails melted into soft breaths. The tension in the air eased. And for the first time since takeoff, the plane felt peaceful again. Passengers who had rolled their eyes moments ago now looked on silently, some even with tears. The flight attendants exchanged stunned glances, one of them biting her lip to keep from crying. Ethan sat frozen, staring at the woman who had just given his child something no money could ever buy, comfort. He felt tears welling up, a mix of grief, relief, and gratitude he hadn't felt in months, for a long while. The only sounds were the low hum of the engines and the soft breathing of his son. When Oliver finally drifted into sleep, Clara gently handed him back. Ethan's voice trembled. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means to me." Clara just shook her head. "You don't have to thank me. I know what it's like, being alone, doing your best, wishing someone would understand." Her words hit deeper than she knew. As she returned to her seat, Ethan couldn't stop glancing at her, at the simple denim jacket, the weariness in her eyes, the quiet strength in her posture. She didn't have much, that much was clear. But what she did have was something he had lost somewhere along the way: empathy. When the plane finally landed, people began gathering their belongings, stretching, yawning. Ethan stood, Oliver cradled against his chest, still asleep. He turned toward Clara as she gently lifted her daughter from the seat. "Can I repay you somehow?" he asked softly. "Anything you need?" Clara smiled, shaking her head. "Just promise me you'll be patient with him and with yourself. That's all he really needs." And with that, she disappeared into the stream of passengers, a quiet figure vanishing into the noise of the terminal. Leaving behind a man forever changed, Ethan stood still, watching until she was gone, his heart heavy with something he hadn't felt in months, gratitude mixed with awe. Weeks passed, but Ethan couldn't forget that moment. The hum of the plane, the quiet kindness of a stranger, the peace that came after months of chaos. It stayed with him. Her words echoed in his mind whenever Oliver cried, or when loneliness crept into his nights. Be patient with him and with yourself. That line became his mantra. He began to change. He started reading parenting books, not as an obligation but as a promise. He hired fewer nannies, canceled meetings, took long walks with his son. He learned the difference between feeding and nurturing, between being present and simply being there. Slowly, the walls he had built around himself began to crumble. He started to heal, not just as a father, but as a man. Then, one quiet morning, while feeding Oliver in his high chair, Ethan opened his laptop to check his company's emails. Among the usual flood of messages, one subject line caught his eye: proposal, Lily's Light Foundation, support for single mothers. He froze. The name, Lily. His heart skipped. He opened the email. Inside was a simple but heartfelt proposal. A small foundation seeking donations to help single mothers with childcare, housing, and job training. It was signed by Clara Evans. Without hesitation, Ethan smiled. He clicked donate. Not a small sum, a life-changing one, but more than money. He added a short note to the payment confirmation. It read, "For the kindness that changed my life at 30,000 feet." When he hit send, something in him lifted, the kind of lightness that comes only after deep sorrow. He looked at Oliver, who was now smiling, bits of oatmeal smeared on his cheeks. Ethan laughed softly, brushing it away. In that moment, he realized that kindness, real kindness, doesn't vanish when the plane lands or when the noise fades. It lives on, quietly reshaping lives, one act at a time. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Hoa Chronicles. Your support helps us keep bringing real, human stories to life. Stories that remind us that compassion still exists, even at 30,000 feet. And before you go, tell us in the comments, what's the kindest thing a stranger has ever done for you? Because sometimes, it only takes one small act of love to change a life forever.